Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront updates and some Star Wars Battlefront 2 news, I guess we could call it. I don't really have any breaking news to talk about today, unfortunately. It's been a bit quiet the last couple of days, and I think we're all waiting for the actual Grievous marketing to ramp up from, I guess, nothing to something, because it is a bit annoying that we're halfway through the month of Grievous and we have yet to get any substantial stuff about Grievous yet. But that's not what I'm going to talk about in this video, because they did actually release a quite interesting article yesterday called The Making of a Hero in Star Wars Battlefront 2. So there's no major news in here, but I think it's a very interesting article because it gives you a bit more details on what goes behind creating an actual hero. So if you don't know too much about game development, I would highly recommend you to read this article. Well, if you know a lot about game development, it can still be interesting, but it gives you an idea of the amount of people that are involved in creating a hero. And something they obviously bring up here is how it all goes together with 3D artists who models it, and then animators who creates movements and attacks, and then motion capture to make it more realistic, UI designers, sound design, voice acting, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of different parts involved that work together, and then at the end you put it all together, and they give us some good details about that here. But I think the things that you guys are most interested in hearing about are the kind of hints and mentions of the upcoming heroes that they have, which shows kind of the direction they're going with those heroes, I would say. So I'm going to give you a couple of quotes. First one is the following, where they talk about ObiWan saying, for example, ObiWan was calm and a master of defensive lightsaber combat. This should then naturally be reflected in gameplay. So they're definitely going for a defensive ObiWan based on this, which is quite interesting. I mean, if you watch the Clone Wars or just the movies, you'll always know that Obi-Wan is more kind of careful and defensive than Anakin, who is on the opposite side and wants to be very aggressive. So I'm thinking about what kind of abilities Obi-Wan could have as kind of defensive abilities. I'd imagine maybe he would have some type of team buff ability that would help his team, and maybe also some type of mind trick. I mean, a mind trick is kind of a classic for Obi-Wan, but I'm not sure how they could do a mind trick that's not exactly the same as Rey's. Overall, I kind of feel like Obi-Wan could be pretty much as Rey is in the game, except for the charge ability, because he's not really the kind of person that would run in like that and charge people down. But it's pretty hard to speculate on with just these mentions, but at least we know what direction they're going for. And if we move on to General Grievous, they say the following. Looking at General Grievous, he was known to be a lethal commander and Jedi killer, but he was also quite the coward when the odds were turning against him. In the game, he's designed to instigate fear in his enemies and to feel overwhelming, but he should also be able to escape in a blink of an eye. And I think this is really interesting, and the fact that they're actually capturing this in the gameplay, and I think based off the leak of the abilities and this mention, we can kind of understand his playstyle a little bit. For instance, the whole part about instigating fear and being overwhelming, I'd imagine being things like just thrusting forward with your 4 lightsabers and kind of slashing people down, combined with some type of ability that where, you know, he spins his lightsabers like he does against Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith. Those kind of things will be, well, I guess overwhelming and instigating fear in the enemies like they mentioned, whereas the cowardly part and being able to escape might be something like his kind of 4 or 6-legged spider run that he does in the movie to escape from Obi-Wan, and that some info also mentioned would be in the game. So that way he would be both of those parts that they do indeed mention. And for the other 2 heroes, they do say the following. In the case of the new Clone Wars heroes, reference from the prequel films and the Clone Wars series alike are being looked at. Count Dooku engaged in combat elegantly and palm down to showcase his superiority. Anakin Skywalker fought offensively. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Something that I think is really interesting here is that if you look at the movie, when Dooku is fighting, he does fight a bit more elegantly than Anakin, sure, but in the Clone Wars series it's even more clear. It's almost like he's kind of having fun and mocking the enemy when he's fighting, because he just fights, well, very elegantly. And if you haven't watched the Clone Wars series, I'll show you a bit of a snippet here on the screen, but he fights in a very different way than most other Sith or Jedi do, and it would be cool if that's something they can actually capture in the game, although this is of course a bit more cartoonish and they might be going for a more realistic style, but still very interesting that they do mention that. And Anakin Skywalker obviously fought very offensively, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's going to be very similar to Kylo Ren but maybe not as aggressive, because he, after all, is his grandfather, and they do have their similarities, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's gonna have some type of frenzy or rage ability, although he is on the good side. And lastly, something that they do mention here is that they apparently planned to give Phasma a grenade launcher, but gave her the staff strikes instead, and this was in a part of the article where they talk about the authenticity and how they pick the different abilities from the movies to fit with the character, and that I do not deny. That we never see her with a grenade launcher, but we see her with the staff in The Last Jedi, so that does make a lot of sense. But from a gameplay perspective, since the staff strikes are close to being useless, I do think that a grenade launcher would have been a lot more helpful. Sure, Boss Scholar has a grenade launcher, but they could have done something interesting with that grenade launcher, and I don't think a lot of people would have complained about it. At least not if they knew how the staff strikes would work out, since those are, well, really frustrating to use. But that's all I've got for you in this video. I will be posting the link to the article in the description below as always if you're interested in reading it yourself. But thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.